Tell me, why do we need $36 billion, 36 billion rands to build new prisons? Tell me why we need that as a country right now. Tell me, how did we get here as a country, as a society? How did we get here? How have we gone this far? How have we failed to such extent? My goodness. Oh, so for those who don't know, the Minister of Correctional Services has come out and said that South Africa needs $36 billion, 36 billion rands to build more prisons, because the prisons that we already have are overcrowded. So he has come out and said that we need 36 billion rands to build new prisons, which would accommodate new inmates, because the inmates that are about to be to be convicted will not have the amenities, essential amenities like beds. So we need $36 billion, 36 billion rands in South Africa to build new prisons. I don't know why I keep saying dollars. It's 36 billion rands. So how did we get here as a country? For me, this is an indicator of how far and how much of a failure our country has been since its democracy. From 1994, this country has been a failure. The government has been a failure. This is just indicative of that. That's just an indicator of how far we failed as a society. That's just an indicator of how far back and how far rotten we are as a society. As a country, why do we need 36 billion to build new prisons? How did we get here as a country? For me, there's one scenario, there's one or two scenarios for me. There's one or two reasons for me. The first reason being the educational system of this country. The second reason being the unemployment rate of this country. Those are the two main reasons for me for why we are in this position as South Africa. Those are the two main reasons why I see right now us needing 36 billion rands. Guess that's in your mind. Guess that's in your mind. 36 billion rands. That money could be used on far better things, far productive things than prisons. That money could be used to build new schools. That money could be used to build infrastructure. That money could be invested back into our economy. 36 billion rands. Tell me why we need 36 billion rands to build prisons. We are a rotten society. Nah, we are a rotten society. It stinks. This society stinks. Going back to the education issue, there's news that came out during the last week that only one school was built in South Africa by the Department of Education in South Africa. Only one school was built in the last calendar year. Only one school was built. But now we need $36 billion, 36 billion rands, excuse me, to build prisons. What are our priorities as a country? What are we what are we prioritizing? What is most important to us? 36, 36 billion rands. Do you imagine how much we could do with that money? The schools we could build with that money. Now that money hasn't been given to the Minister of Correctional Services. That money hasn't been allocated for correctional services yet. It was just a report by the Correctional Services Minister that we need that money. It's a failure of our education system. It's a failure. Because most of South Africans have poor education. That's a fact. Most of South Africans do not acquire the best of education. And as a result, they don't go to university, they don't get jobs, and they get stuck in the townships, in the villages, and God knows what they do in there. And we all know what they do in there. Crime. That's the only alternative for someone who is uneducated or someone who hasn't been given the chance to further his education and acquire the right qualifications to get a decent job. We've been failed by our education system. These high school dropouts that we have each year, these high school dropouts that we have every year, what do we think they become? They become criminals, which is why we end up in such dire situations where we need a 36 billion rands just to build prisons. And it also goes back to our government, the incompetence of our government for the last 30 years. Oh my goodness. These guys are incompetent. This should be easy. This should be easy. You can't tell me, Uti, we've built one school for the previous year. One school. Only one school. But now we need 36 billion rands to build prisons. What are we as a society? The government has failed us. The institutions have failed us. That's it for me. That's it for me. And there's reports coming out to our grade fours scored the worst marks in the competition. I didn't get the full story yet. I haven't read the full story yet. And you wonder what will become of those grade fours who cannot read comprehensively. What will become of those grade fours in 10 years' time, in 15 years' time, in 20 years' time? Once they drop out of school, they can't understand comprehension. They can't read comprehensively. They can't read to understand. What do we expect of them in the next 20 years? This direction we are moving as a country is a dangerous one. It's a very dangerous trajectory that we are moving about. It's a very if you can't read to understand in grade 4, grade 5, grade 6, grade 7, how are you gonna pass matric? That's where your skills are supposed to be honed. That's where your skills are supposed to be harnessed. That's where you are trained. Grade 1, grade 2, grade 3. As grade 4, you are supposed to be able to read something and understand it. But our education system has failed us so much that grade 4s can't even read to understand. They cannot read comprehensively. And then there's news coming out to we are in a shortage of teachers. The country is in a shortage of teachers. So it's all these elements coming in together. What is our future going to look like? What is our future going to look like? No, I'm triggered. I'm honestly triggered by these developments. I'm very triggered. I'm very upset. I do not like this one bit. And anybody who feels comfortable with this, you should be ashamed of yourself. If you can't read as grade 4, now I'm not blaming the kids. The kids are just a byproduct of our failing education system. I'm blaming the government. I'm blaming